All right, welcome to another episode of Profusion. I'm really excited. Today we have Lanny Bassham, or I think it's pronounced Bassham,
Yes.
correct?
hmm
Lanny Bassham. This guy, he's got a number of books out. Let's just start with credentials, right? You're an Olympic gold medalist. Check. Lanny,
Yep, that's right.
verified. How many gold medals did you win?
Well, Olympic gold medals,
Yeah.
one.
One. Okay. He's got two books that I'm more familiar with: Parenting Champions and With Winning in Mind. You were a national rifle champion, world. I've got what I see the Pan American Games. Was that not Olympics?
No, Pan American Games is a separate competition. It's
Okay.
held every 4 years, but it's normally held the year before the Olympics. But it's not the Olympics; it's Pan Am Games. And now my sport, international rifle, holds a world championship every 4 years, just like the Olympics. And it's 2 years after the Olympics, and so I've won the world championships 4 times.
Basically, you were the best rifleman pretty much throughout the 70s. Does that sound about right?
Well, from 74 through 78, I can say that probably if we ranked shooters back then, I can't think of anybody that would have ranked higher than me.
Right.
But I won the world championships in '74, um, and then won several national championships. And when you win the national championship in the United States during that period of time, uh, you're competing against the best shooters in the world. When my teammates were, uh, to show you how good my teammates were, uh, they in 19 during the '70s, early '70s. Uh, we all broke the individual world record on the same day in one tournament. I mean that's incredible uh, uh, depth for a team. I don't think any team has ever done that. Any four-person team that ever had four guys that could do that. And we held all the world records at one time, and so I was just fortunate to shoot with those guys.
Yeah, and you talk about them in your book With Winning in Mind, which is one of the best books I feel like I've ever read. I think I'm going to put it into my top five. I also love Tim Grover, Relentless. I don't know. Have you read that book?
It's on my list.
Okay. Yeah, this is in there. And you mentioned Jack Ryder was one of your teammates, and a couple other. I can't remember their names offhand. And I got to tell you, page 140. I don't know the topics on self image. I think changed my life. Those few pages, just digging into the subconscious mind. So Lanny has a mental management company, and you frame it in the book. You frame it as subconscious, conscious, and self-image, right? And that digs into the self-image portion, those pages, which just kind of framing it in these ways helps me figure out how to basically become better at whatever I'm doing. Correct?
Yeah, I think that performance is a function of three mental processes: conscious, subconscious, and self-image. Um, Conscious is what you think about. You change what you think about, everything changes. There are helpful and harmful thoughts, and you just one of the best ways to get better is to determine what are the helpful ones and gravitate toward those and stay away from the harmful ones. And then the subconscious is your skills. Everybody tends to start a sport working almost exclusively on skills. I know I did. And that only gets you so far. It'll get you a long way. But if you don't pay attention to the conscious and the self image parts, you're never going to reach your true potential. And the self image your habits and your attitudes, and it's basically self-image is what makes you act like you. And when you change your attitude, you can change your habits, and and without changing your attitude, and you'll have a temporary improvement. But in order for it to be permanent, it has to become like you to do whatever it is that you're changing to. And I think a lot of people are really looking for a transformation when they ask for improvement, whether it be going to a coach for a form issue, or a mental coach, or anybody that you want to go to. Uh, there there's a difference between something being informational and transformational. Informational, you got the information that you didn't have, and that's important. But transformational, it's like you to do it. And there's a big difference between those two. And so we're all about trying to help people to become. It's like them to do whatever it is that they want to do, and provide tools to help them do that.
So you explain these three items. So subconscious is basically practicing. And so how do we discern conscious versus self-image? Self-image. So it's funny. I was watching, you remember the show Head of the Class? Do you remember that show?
Yeah, a little bit.
Back in the 80s, where it was like all these nerds were in the class and they're like, who's going to the dance? And then they're all like, nah, we're not going to the dance. So they had a self-image of themselves that they weren't cool, right? So the teacher was like, all right, no, you're also cool. So they had to change their self. So I thought about you, because they had to fix their self-image to be like, hey, I'm cool enough to go to the dance, right? It kind of,
Yeah. So best way that I can explain self-image is, let's take two athletes. Let's say that I'm competing against you in whatever you want to, golf. Let's say golf. We're both pro golfers, and we have a playoff to win a tournament, and we have equal skill. Our everything is equal. Our equipment's equal. Our skill is equal. Our mental process is equal. Our experience is equal. We played on these courses the same amount of time. I mean, everything is equal except one thing. You think you can beat me, and I think you can beat me. It's over for me. That's self-image.
so what would you tell people to do to fix that?
Well, if you have your self-image got there by imprinting. So what happens is that every time, let's just take golf for example, because most people can understand that, is that if you hit a good golf shot, what the conscious mind recognizes that and sends an imprint to your self-image. It's like me to hit a golf shot, a good golf shot. So that imprint goes into the imprint jar. The self-image is the repository of, it's not really a jar, but the repository of the imprints that the conscious mind is sending it. So every time you hit a good shot, what imprints is that you hit a good shot. Well, every time you hit a bad shot, it imprints that it's like me to hit a bad shot. Well, if you hit more bad shots than good shots, your self-image tends to tilt toward, it's not like me to hit a good shot. And so your self-image the self-image kind of grows and shrinks. We tend to talk about them as if they're circles, getting bigger or smaller, and the bigger is better. And so if that's the only way that you imprint, then you probably never would get better, because in the beginning, when you first start a new sport, you're probably going to have more bad shots than good shots. And so your self-image would, because it has more imprints that were bad than good, you're probably going to stop doing that. But there are other ways that you can change self-image. like the self-image is impacted by who you're around. We tend to adopt the attitudes and habits of the people that we hang with. And so if you're playing with better players, you tend to play a little better. If all of your friends are complainers, you're likely to complain. That's just the parents are concerned about who their kids hang with for a good reason. Because if all of their friends are I don't know, drug dealers, then your kid's probably dealing drugs. So we tend to uh, become who we're around. That's an imprint. But what really amazed me when I really started studying this is every time you think about a bad shot, it improves the probability you're going to have another bad shot. Every time you talk about a bad shot. Now, I'll tell you, it's an interesting statistic that for me, that I've asked this question hundreds of times, is that, well, where you play or whatever sport you're involved in, if you go out to the club or whatever it is wherever you play, when players come off the field and you ask them, how'd you do? What do they talk about first? The shots that they hit right or the shots that went wrong?
Hmm. I don't know. I'd have to put that to the test, right?
Well, give it a go wherever
I
you
guess it
play.
depends if they
Go
won, right? Did they
go
win?
there and ask them.
I
Uh,
would say if they won, they're going to talk about the good shots, is my assumption. If they lost, they would talk about the bad shots, right?
yeah, they talk about the bad shots. I mean, this is universal. I've never really had a sport that doesn't do that. Now, some sports are worse than others. I mean, most sports are really bad about this, and it changes a little bit based on the quality of the player. When you get up to the top echelon, they tend to not do that. But uh, and I've only had one sport that I've ever worked with um, that tends to not do it at all. And I'm not saying that there's not some people that do that, but martial arts, for some reason, is less likely to talk about uh, negative things, and I think it's because of the way that they're taught. They're basically taught. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do, and not be problem oriented. That's an interesting thing too about self-image. Every time you're thinking, talking, or writing about the solution, your self-image grows. Every time you're thinking or talking or writing about the problem, self-image shrinks. And now you don't have to be a student of mental management to understand that. As a matter of fact, uh, the way I got one of the reasons why I got interested in controlling the conscious mind was uh, my first 3 years on the U.S. team. Uh, I was number four out of the top four, and my practice scores was as good as my teammates, but I wasn't winning, and I didn't win anything of a consequence my first 3 years. Uh, and The best thing I'd ever done was winning a silver medal in the Olympics, which is no small task at all. I'm proud of that, but it's not winning. I wasn't winning anything, and my teammates were winning everything. And I did a quick analysis and I found out that the reason was that I was getting as many tens as they were getting, but I was getting more bad shots than they were getting. So I decided I was getting eights and they were getting nines and tens. And I was getting the same number of tens. I was just getting more eights. And so I came up with this great idea about how to eliminate my eights. Every time I shot an eight, I would write down what I was doing wrong. What do you think happened to my eight count?
It went up,
It
right?
went up. Yeah, it went up. It matters what you think about. What
Right.
you think about causes you to do that again. Well, what does that have to say about a person who complains? Whatever you're complaining about, you're going to get more of it.
Right.
What every time you talk about your bad shots or your bad performances, but you go to a golf club and you ask a guy, what do they talk about? They talk about the shots that went wrong, and they're just improving the probability. Their self-image is impacting by that. It becomes like them to hit more bad shots. The more they think about it, talk about it, worry about it, complain about it, they're going to get more of the same. So that's why self-image is so important.
Yeah, and in earlier in your book, the portion, it's funny you talk about, well, somebody's self-image is too big, or somebody's self-image is too small, or somebody's conscious is too big, or their subconscious is sort of small. So how would one get to balance these?
Well,
You
first
got
thing,
to figure out which one's too big or too small, right?
well, the first thing you got to understand is that most people, when most people learn how to play or a sport the way I did, is that you don't know anything about the conscious or subconscious or self-image. So you think that the key to me getting better is I go take a lesson and practice, take a lesson and practice, take a lesson and practice. I do. It's all about skill, 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 and so that you don't pay attention to what you're thinking about, and that's because of our society. I mean, the society doesn't pay attention to what you're thinking about either. For example, um, you go to any high school in America, and you're going to have, if they have teams at all, like in Texas, every high school has football team, basketball team, baseball team, track team, and they've got tons of coaches on form. But you'd be hard pressed to find a mental coach in any of those schools. Did you take a course in high school or college on how to think?
No.
I didn't either. Okay, so they don't. You're not taught that that's important. As a matter of fact, when I was competing back in the '70s for the first half of my career, uh, we thought that mental toughness, that's what we called it. You can handle pressure. We thought that was something you had. It wasn't something you could learn. And so, because it wasn't something you could learn, we weren't trying to learn it. And so, it wasn't until I had I cratered mentally at the Olympics and my first Olympics, and when I lost so many points because I was shaken to death because I just had no middle game. Uh, I When I lost enough points to where I thought I can't possibly medal, pressure was off, and I shot just fine, and that's why I got a silver medal. But I knew that I had to fix this middle game, and so I decided that I'm going to interview Olympic gold medalists and world champions for the next couple of years, and back in those days we didn't have cell phones; we had answering machines. And so I would leave a message. I knew a couple of those guys and other sports I'd met, and I would leave an answering machine a message that said something like, "I'm Lanny Bassham. I'm a silver medalist in the Olympics. You're a gold medalist in the Olympics. I need your help. Call me back, please." And they always did. And and they not only would they answer my questions, but they would also give me the names and phone numbers of other Olympic and world champions that they knew, and that was how I managed to talk to, I don't know how many hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but I don't know, 50, 60,
Yeah.
over a
You,
two.
you did your research. You
Yeah,
mentioned in the intro, I believe, in both of your books, how you wanted to play baseball, right? And you went out for the team, and they just stick you in right field, but did you ever tend to think that, you know, maybe if your dad was coaching, they would have put you at shortstop. It's kind of what's going on these days. It's called dad ball. Have you ever heard of this terminology?
No, no. I couldn't make I had I had several qualifications for baseball
Yeah,
for Little League baseball. I was slow, short, and uncoordinated,
right.
and I tried out. Everybody tried out. I went to practices. I was there on time. I worked hard, but I couldn't hit. I couldn't catch. I couldn't pitch. I couldn't throw. Not good enough to make the team. So I sat on the bench, and so that was probably a good thing because if I'd have been even an average baseball player, I never would have won a gold medal in the Olympics in rifle shooting. I mean, I developed a reputation of being a bad athlete, and it was well deserved. I was just not athletic, and we're in the sixth grade. We're studying Olympics in school, and the teacher makes a statement in class. It's possible somebody could be Olympic champion someday in this class. I wondered who'd have the best chance. And this little boy sitting next to me jumps right up and says, "Teacher, I don't know who'd have the best chance, but I know who would have the worst chance, Lanny." And that was a turning point in my life. So I came home all upset about that. And I said, "This has got to stop. I've got to find something I'm good at." And my mother hauls me off to the library and made me check out books on Olympic athletes. And so I started reading about these guys, and every single one of them had big obstacles in their way, and they overcame them. And that's why they won. That's why they were so hard to beat. And so if you find something that's difficult for you, that's probably a good thing because if you get good at that, you learn something. And so I learned. It was about the same time that somebody invited me to a rifle club meeting, and we didn't have any guns in the house. We fished, but we didn't hunt or had no marksmanship uh, experience really. And so I asked my friend. I says, "Well, tell me about rifle shooting." He said, "It's an Olympic sport." I said, are you sure?" Because I never, there were no books in my library about Olympic rifle shooters. And and he says, "Oh yeah, it's an Olympic sport." And I said, "Well, how tall do you have to be? And how strong do you have to be? And how fast do you have to be?" He says, "Why are you asking me how fast you have to be?" I said, "Citius, Altius, Fortius, stronger, higher, faster. That's the Olympic motto." I just felt like all Olympic sports had to be stronger, higher, faster sports. And I'm slow, short, and uncoordinated. He says, "Well, you're going to love rifle shooting because you don't have to go. It's the only sport in the Olympics program where you're trying to make the body stop."
Right. And same with golf too, right?
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that really hit me initially in your book with winning in mind was how you're so process oriented, right? How you don't want to focus on the outcome. So how would you say if you're dealing with people who are focused on the outcome, even though the outcome is already good? So do you ever deal with clients where they already have good outcomes and not necessarily process driven? And how do you persuade them to become more process driven? Does that
I,
question ring a bell at all?
they're going to be beaten by the people that are process oriented.
Yeah.
Here's the reason why you need to be process oriented, not outcome oriented. It's possible for you to run a mental process that's a constant, and outcome is always a variable. You show me somebody that always hits good golf shots. I'd like to know that guy.
It doesn't exist. Yeah. I mean,
He's not
there's
around. He's not around. So what happens is that outcome is a variable. And if your mental process is a function of a variable, you can never achieve mental consistency. And if you focus on process, you can run a system, a mental system. You can define what to think about before, during, and after a task, and duplicate that thought pattern and achieve mental consistency. And mental consistency promotes technical consistency. Technical consistency promotes control of the golf ball if you're a golfer, and control of the golf ball you produces a lot of birdies, and and good scoring produces championships. And so it's a big advantage. If I were to ask everybody that's ever worked with me, what's the one word that you're looking for? They would all 99% of them would say consistency. I just want to be consistent. I don't want to train and have a score in training and not be able to duplicate that under pressure. And I want consistency. And it starts with the mental game.
It starts with what?
The mental game.
Yeah. And I believe you worked with Ben Crane, correct? You wrote your forward. You worked with Fred Funk.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of tour players.
So I've got here, the eliminate reinforcement of a bad attitude. And that's what we brushed on earlier. But I think there's something in here I notated. I think it was in Parenting Champions, was levers, leaners, and leaders. Do you remember that? Do you remember writing that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we found that very interesting, how I think the one reason is the skill of the coaching staff and development of the leaners on the team. Organizations such as school teams, classes in school, and virtually any group of people fall into three categories: levers, leaners, and leaders. Levers are going to leave the program. Leaders are going to lead. It will not matter to either of these classifications if the coach is excellent or incompetent. Leaders will lead anyway, and levers will leave anyways. The real test of the program happens to be the leaners. In an excellent program, the leaners will lean toward leading. In a weak program, they will lean toward leaving. It may be the same with your family. I found that very interesting. Any other color you want to add to that? But I like that paragraph. I think it's very crucial.
I think that it's applicable every place you go. If you're running an organization and a company, it's the same thing. If you're coaching people, you can't build a program without recognizing that there's some people that need to go, and there's some people you need to encourage, and you need to find the leaders, and the leaders will help you lead the leaners toward leading. And especially if you have a program that's more interested in character than in competence, because character, if you give me a group of people that have strong character, it's easy to teach them a sport if they have a strong self-image, and if they're trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I was a Boy Scout, so those are good things to be. And if you're that person, you can learn a skill, and with hard work, you can get good at just about anything. And there's but if your self-image is not, doesn't have those, if you don't have character, I mean, this is not coming from me alone. I mean, just read John Wooden's book.
Which one?
He he is I can't remember what it's called. I just know it's John Wooden's book. I've
Right.
read John Wooden's book. Uh, John Wooden was interested in drafting and recruiting people of character, and his success pyramid, or whatever he called it, uh, the base of it was give me a guy that's respectful, that's trustworthy, that's loyal, that gets along with people, that's easy to work with, and I'll build a championship team out of that. And he was the best collegiate coach of his time, and maybe all time. I don't know, but it's that's the reason why some people have to. I like to focus on attainment rather than just accomplishment. Uh, Attainment is not the same thing as accomplishment. Accomplishment is it always has a number associated with it. It's A, B, C, D, F in school. It's gold, silver, and bronze in the Olympics. It's first, second, third on the leaderboard. It's how many votes you get in an election, and it's what you do. But uh, but but I asked this question in my book, Parenting Champions, to my parents, to my readers. What's more important to you? Who your children accomplish, what your children accomplish, or who they become? And I've never had a parent yet that didn't say who they become. Well, that's interesting.
That's interesting because that really puts the emphasis on how they think
Yeah, and
instead of
the problem is becoming is not rewarded because it's hard to measure. I mean, how are you going to give an award, a becoming award? And how are you going to give a character award? Well, this guy, how are you going to measure confidence? How are you going to measure commitment? How are you going to measure those kind of things? The most important things about the middle game are very difficult to quantify. And but they're no question they're important. And so uh, so I think that it's an interesting statistic. You ask any top performer in any sport, what percentage of your sport is mental?
yeah. Well, I don't know. I know you push for in your books like 90. I could have a debate either way, but like I think genetics play into it, right?
Well, I'm it's that's not
I
my
can't play in the NBA, right? I've
that's
never.
not my statistic. That is the statistic of the people that I asked that
Right.
question to. I'm talking about top performers, world champions, Olympic champions, PGA Tour
Well,
players.
then,
I've
yeah,
never had a I've
yeah.
never had a PGA Tour player that didn't say that the mental game was 90% of not 90% of their game. Then you ask them the second question. Well, uh, since you've been doing this sport, what percentage of your time and money have you spent on the middle game?
Yeah, it's usually none.
And it's a very low number. And that doesn't make sense. The thing that you think is that's the top is the most important, you tend to ignore, and that can pay a price. As long as you can get away with it, as long as your competitors are ignoring it. But when the competitors start paying attention to it, you're going to be beaten by people that have the same skill level you have, and they know something about the middle game.
What do you think of like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm curious as to your thoughts on his mental game after watching that. But
Well, there are people, there are champions out there. I'm not saying Michael Jordan's one of these because I don't know him, but there are people that are unconscious competent. They can do it, and they figured it out. But the problem with being unconscious competent is if you don't know why you're doing it, if you don't have a system that you run, um, if you get 10% off center in a tournament, you can't get back. It's a little bit like the difference between me driving a car and a mechanic driving a car, and if something goes wrong with the car, uh, oh, I don't know how to fix a car, and I don't know. That's maybe it's not the greatest example today when the cars are so computerized, but when I grew up, you could fix a car without having 200 fuses in the car.
I,
Uh,
I like this word unconscious competent. That's the word you just used? Explain
yeah,
that a little bit.
well, I think they can do it, but they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know how. They can't explain what they're doing. They can't define what cause when things don't go right. They don't always have a solution. Um, and that's a problem. Uh, when it's like it was explained to me by one of the world champions that I'm working with right now. He says before I started working with Lanny, my mental game was he was already a world champion. He says my mental game was kind of like a black box. I put things in this side and things good things sometimes come out the other side, but I didn't know what was going on inside the black box. And now with a little bit of training on, uh, I've been doing this a long time. I mean, next year will be 50 years that I've been studying this, and very few people have been studying this that long. And and so we have discovered why things are working and how to keep the bad things from happening to you and how to promote the good results. And that's really the key is to pay attention to what is available out there, and you'll develop an edge. When I started working on the mental game, I went from somebody that couldn't win a tournament to where I had about 4 years where uh, I was winning almost everything I shot.
Did you study this mental game when you were in the Olympics, when you were in the 70s, or did you learn this over the years since then?
No, I started learning at after the 1972 Olympics. My initial research was done over the phone to Olympic and world champions. And what I noticed when I talked to these guys, nobody had the whole story, but everybody had a piece of it. And I just connected the dots, and I thought, well, there's a system to this, and I upgraded to it, and it was a game changer. And I won the world champion, won 3 world titles, at the next world championship, and 4 world records, and I just never looked back. I just kind of just said, I've got to know everything I can about this. And then I kind of kept it a secret until after the Olympic gold medal win, and then I uh, started this company in 1977, and we continue to learn all the time. I mean, I'm always talking to performers that are having success, and I think the best way to learn how to do something is to find somebody who's really good at it and find out what they're doing. And that,
What's what's like something maybe in the last 2 or 3 years or 5 years that you have been coaching somebody and you picked up something new?
well, I'll tell you one thing that we picked up, and one good thing that happened in COVID, with COVID hitting us, it was a very good learning experience for me because I said a little bit earlier that the difference between informational and transformational. We most coaches are in the information business some way or another. You write a book, you have a video, those are examples of information.
You could
Along,
almost say that's also transactional, right? Transactional versus transformational.
yeah, well, there's a lot of ways to learn the information that you want to
Right.
learn. For something to be transformational, what we used to do this, I had a nice office, and the environment was really good, and people would come from all over the world to take group and individual training from us at our offices, and we didn't record anything. We just gave a seminar, and everybody was happy, and they went home, and the amount of we kind of monitored the people that really had a transformational result. Now, some people, you can get a little transformation just by reading a book, or attending a seminar. I mean, I'm just telling you, but the people that got a massive amount of transformation were the people that came back and took the same course again and again, and they had much more transformation. So then COVID hits, and they shut us down, and so we started teaching by Zoom. And well, the difference between Zoom training and in office training is it's difficult to video in office and record in office, but it's super easy to do it by the method that we're doing now. I mean, you're recording this seminar and this session, and so we started recording these, and what we found out was that transformation requires 5 elements. The first one, if you want to have a transformation, means it's like you to do it. If you are interested in doing more than just being interested in this subject, but you want to be good at it, it want to be like you to do it well. There are 5 elements here. The first one is you need to get information that you don't know. The second one is you need application by an expert. That's why they'll never replace coaches, teachers, mentors, parents, things like that. You need a coach. You can learn a limited amount of time on your own, but you can save a lot of time if you have somebody who's been where you want to go to guide you along the way. So application by an expert is number 2. Number 3 is confirmation. Somebody with authority has to tell you you're doing it right. And the fourth step is consultation, because you're going to have questions, and you're going to be able to want to answer those questions. Well, for years I thought that those were all you needed, but when we found out that people have a lot more transformation when they're allowed to rewatch the seminar that they just took. So what I can tell you, what I've learned over the last years, is that if you take a seminar or a training by Zoom, and the best way to get transformation out of this is just pay attention to the instructor. Don't take any notes while you're going, because when you take notes, you're not paying attention to the instructor. But just pay attention, and then when you get the replay, take the notes in the replay. And the best thing that I've learned is that your transformation, the chance that it's going to be like you to do this, is you're going to save half the time to get to transformation. If you have an opportunity to watch that replay multiple times, and you'll get something new out every time that you take it. And if you can, what the top people do is not only do they do that, but they try to utilize multiple ways of hearing the same information. Like they're listening to audio, they're watching video, they're doing training. Actually, we all learn best by doing, and and so forth. But and I'm not against the time on the course with an instructor, but when's the last time you videoed that so that you can experience that again? It's a great way to learn, but it shouldn't be the only way to learn. I think that reading a book does something different from watching a video or listening to an audio. All of those do something different for a person. So if you want to really experience transformation, those are the things that we've learned recently, and that's why I shut my office down,
Yeah.
because now I'm totally convinced that the way to go right now is, as long as we still have an internet, this is the way to go.
Yeah, I like implementation, or actually being the coach and coaching it, right? Because when I'm coaching my son, I can I'm so finicky about exactly what words are coming out of my mouth and his mouth.
Yeah. Well, that's important. Uh, what you're what you're reinforcing is really important. Uh, and I think one of the things that I bring out in Parenting Champions is parents don't really know that they're doing something wrong. Like, one of the worst things that a parent can do when they pick up their kid from a game that they played in a game to take them home is to ask them this question: "How'd you do?"
Hmm.
I mean, it sounds innocent. I mean, almost every parent is going to say that to their kids. Well, that's an open-ended question. It can be answered any old way you want. And we live in a negatively charged world where people tend to talk about what they did wrong more than what they did right. And that the self-image grows when you talk about what you did right, and it shrinks when you talk about what you did wrong. So because they live in a negatively charged world, they're more likely to answer that open-ended question with what they did wrong. And so a better question to ask for parents is what did you do right? What did you learn? And what are you going to do about it? Even making a mistake is not a bad thing if you learn from it.
Right. Yeah, I
Make it,
usually ask, what was your favorite part of your day at school?
yeah, there
You
you
know, I
go.
get more specific than how was school, or I said, what was your favorite part of the day, so they can focus on what was good.
That's
And in
right.
your book, you're like, well, I think it was in this book. I know I read Arete, which tipped me off to your book, Brian Johnson's, who's a friend of yours. But in your book, I think yours, it said build yourself, build it up, right? Focus on the positives, just build up the positives. Was that in your book, or was that in Arete? And
No, that's right. The reason why positivity works, like, a lot of people know that, I think everybody knows that positivity works better than being negative, but they might not know why it works. And the reason it works is because the self-image
right.
is growing, and growing in the direction of the self-image makes you do whatever's like you to do. And if it's like you to tell the truth, you're going to tell the truth. If it's like you to make a shot, it's like you can make a shot. If you think you're good at something, I mean, it's the old Henry Ford saying, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
When you coach golfers, and do you ask them, hey, what's your swing thought?
Well, swing thought is an interesting concept. So I normally, if they bring up swing thought, I normally ask you, when do you have this thought?
Well, it'd be during the swing, right?
During the swing.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
I've never had a tour player ever tell me that they thought of anything during a swing.
my guess would be like just before then, right? Just before it.
Yeah. Well, if you have a swing, if you want, there's a
Because it could
time.
be a negative thought in your brain, right? And then you get a negative shot.
There's a time in my system to think about what if you want to call it a swing thought, that's fine. There's a time to think about that, but it's not right before you hit the shot. It's back around the time that you're rehearsing. You're taking a practice swing or two. That might be a good time to think about that. Any kind of correction or strategy issue that you have, but you definitely don't want to think about that right before you hit the shot. So,
All right, we got to let Lanny go. He's on a tight schedule here, right?
yeah, well, it's
All right,
it's all the time.
What's that?
It happens all the time like that.
Yeah. I think what you would say, I feel like after reading your book, I would say your swing thought or your pre-swing thought needs to be, it's like me to hit it near the pin, or it's like me to hit the ball straight.
There's another step in the mental process that happens before you run your mental program. It's I call it a commitment step where you it's kind of, I got this kind of thought that where you have you remind yourself that you're going to make this shot. You can do this, and just by saying that or to yourself, it improves the probability that you're going to be successful. But I guarantee you, if you think that you can't do it, that makes a difference too. So,
Yeah, it's like saying, well, if we're all equal in every capacity, but I don't think I'm going to win, then I'm not going to win. You're just going to let the other person win.
yeah.
Nice. Lanny, thank you so much for coming on. Check out Lanny's books, With Winning in Mind, Parenting Champions, on his website or on Amazon. Obviously, With Winning in Mind is top 5 for me books ever. Parenting Champions, I'm going to start. I forced my wife to read, and I'm going to read that soon. Any last thoughts, Lanny?
Yeah, just communicate with us. You can reach me at withwinninginmind.com, and and then there's a nice gift on the front page of that website that you can it's basically how I use mental management to win the Olympics and World Championships, and so it's just a special report. It's free, and we'd like for you to have it.
Yeah. Have you heard about Wyndham Clark and how he hired a sports psychologist in the last year and a half? Have you
No.
heard his story? Okay, yeah. Well, it resulted in him winning like $10+ million on the Pro Tour, completely flipping his game. So that's how I see working with you.
All right.
All right, Lanny. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Take care.
All right.